Hello and welcome back to my craft room. I'm having a busy day today. It's freezing outside. I was out in the snow yesterday going and getting my new glasses. Oh, I need to just go and get them. I've got special glasses now to use. I'm going to call them my YouTuber glasses because it's for when I'm sitting here filming and crafting at the same time. So I'm going to go, I will have to pause in a second and go and get them. But I'll just tell you what I'm going to be covering today. So I've been catching up on a few different projects, trying to sort of tie up a few sort of loose ends and catch up on things. It suddenly occurred to me that when we did the live birthday special, I was doing those slow stitched patches, for want of a better word, starting with Inktense pencils. Look at the paint. I have been doing lots of different things today. Starting with Inktense pencils, little simple motifs, and then stitching into them onto scraps of fabric, little tiny scraps of fabric from bits of old clothes and things that you can then stitch onto journal covers or craft bags or kiddies jackets or whatever you like, really. So because it was live, I didn't really explain too well what I was doing or show too well or finish anything, so I thought I finished a few now. I thought I'll just sort of quickly show you what I've done and go through the steps for anybody that kind of missed out or couldn't really work out what I was doing, because it wouldn't surprise me. So let me show you what I've got in it. We go to the desk, and while I'm doing this, the next stage of my Lally Mill journal page is drying, so I'll be doing a video about that quite soon as well. Right, okay, let's go here. So excuse the, but I'm not going to bother clearing up the paint and stuff because I'll be back into the journaling in a minute. So this is my journal wrap. So I'm going to be making one like this for the, now who is it who won the journal wrap? Yeah, just double checked. It was Susan who won the custom made journal wrap, which I've already started working on. So I've talked to her and found out her preferences for colours and things. So I'll be working on that. And then there were a couple of smaller boxes. One went to Diane and one went to Deb, so well done all of those. So this is what I was using to keep some of my bits and pieces. I've changed it since. Oh, I've got this beautiful little handmade sketchbook which Claire sent me, is in here, and lovely pencils to go with it. These are the Inktense pencils I was using. I have got a set of 72 colours of these, but I was trying to sort of keep it down a little bit. So I've got those, and I had a little brush, and that's all I was using, along with the aloe vera gel to activate them with. I also used some permanent ink and wooden alphabet stamps, alphabet and number stamps. You can get little sets of these for like, well, it was 99p when I bought them in the Range or Hobbycraft or whatever. And if you haven't got ink, you could try using like a pigment marker or something like that, something where the ink will stay wet just for long enough for you to, because otherwise if it dries straight away you're not going to be able to stamp with it. But experiment with what you've got, or you could just do like I did with some of the words I'm going to show you and just write the words directly on with Inktense or some other kind of fabric pen or whatever. Okay, I'm going to put these out of the way. I've got so much stuff around here, you wouldn't believe it. In terms of sewing supplies, I made a mini version of my journal wrap to make into a, wrong way around, sewing thing. So I've got my little oh yeah, that's the other reason I thought I'd do this video, because I never did come back and show you the finished needle case. It was going to just be like a little needle book, but it kind of grew, and this is perfect for me because it's got everything I need for a little slow stitching project to take down in the evenings. So I've got the little needle book here. I've got space to put all my different sizes of needles depending on what I'm doing. Everything from really fine sewing needles right up to this humdinger one that I use for book binding can all go in there. I've got a little pin cushion here if I wanted to take pins with me. I've got a little thing there I can put my dinky pair of scissors in. I love these funky animal print scissors. I've got a few little dinky pairs of scissors, they're all handy. And then this little pocket. So all of these fabrics came from the Bazaar scrap packs, and because a lot of, well, they're reclaimed bits of clothing and things, they're all from bits of clothing. Sometimes you get sort of elasticated or smocked bits like this, so I just pinched a bit of that and thought that's perfect, so I can just put a few embroidery threads or whatever in there. So yeah, so this is how my needle case turned out. And at the moment I'm just doing it all sort of rolled around like that, but it's quite flexible depending on what depending on what I've got on at the time. But I think it's gorgeous. I think it's a lovely way to use some of all of the bits and bobs, the trims and everything came out of the Bazaar scrap packs. I will leave I will leave again the link to Bazaar. A few people have ordered scrap packs and other things from them since then, and been very happy with them, which is lovely, because I just love Bazaar. I love what they do, and I love their ethics, you know. And they've agreed to, when you're ordering, if you put a comment to the seller at the end when you're checking out, if you put a comment, Arty Farty Annie Treat, they will put a little something in for you. And it's been all kinds of things so far. It's been really interesting to see the little treats that people have got. It won't always be the same thing, because Bazaar being what Bazaar is, they don't have unlimited supplies of the same thing, so they'll just play it by ear and go with their heart and send you a little something depending on what they've got around and what you ordered. So I will leave a link to them. Don't forget to use the promo code as well, the Bazaar free postage, so that you get free postage over £30. I forgot that the first time. Okay, so that is how this video's all over the place, isn't it? Never mind, I'm sure you can follow along. So that is just to show you how the needle case turned out. So normally my embroidery threads would then be tucked in there, and if, you know, depending on what I've got, I might end up kind of doing more like this with it, folding it more, you know. It just depends on what I've got. Let me show you now how the patches turned out. Have I done with the threads? I normally just tuck them straight back in there. How weird. So here's how they turned out. This one I think was already done, so I'd already shown you that one, but it's just a closer look. So this is just using, I will demonstrate in a minute, this is just using the Inktense pencils to get that shape, that basic shape. I had drawn myself out, just to make it easier on myself for the live, I had already drawn out some very simple motifs, and I found that the fabric I was using, not that one, the fabric I was using, I could just see straight through and just sort of trace over that if I wanted to. But actually in practice what I did was just freehand. Now I'd worked them out, it was easy enough to freehand them straight on there. If you wanted to use a pencil or a heat erasable pen or something, you could definitely do that. So these are the other shapes I just drawn out, and I have now done most of these, I think, except for I haven't done that one or that one. I've done all the others. I'm very happy to, if anybody wants to have a go at this and isn't confident drawing out the motifs, I mean, you could trace them out of magazines or whatever as well. If anybody wants to have, I could always scan these and share them in the Facebook group and the Discord group. If you're interested, let me know. Let me know in the comments if you're interested. So that was that one. The Inktense part is just the heart shape, and then I've just done a very simple running stitch and a chain stitch around the outside there, and then that's the shine one. I've got a bit more elaborate there, but basically all it was the circle and some spokes, and then I've just done a chain stitch around the outside, a sort of spiral of running stitches, and I've just done some running stitches. Sometimes what I like to do is a whipped running stitch. I like to whip the running stitch or the chain stitch. I'll show you that in a minute. That's where this middle line here that looks a bit bolder, that's what I've done there. That's very easy. This is the bloom one, so it's just the petals that I've done in Inktense, and with that one I've done it a bit more elaborately in that I've used one colour. I think I used this lilac-y colour over the whole petal shape, and then I went in with the red violet and just did a little bit more towards the centre and blended them in, and then as I went over with the aloe vera, they blended together. I will show this in a minute. There's the melon one. I think it's probably my favourite in a way. And I've just done some little separate chain stitches or lazy daisy stitches there to make the seeds. So basically if you can do a chain stitch and a running stitch, which I will show you in a minute, you can do any of this. It's really, really simple. I picked this because it was like, I know some of my viewers like doing the more sort of drawing and painting things, and some like the more stitching and crafty things, and this was a bit of both really. And you could even, if you don't want to stitch these onto something, you could actually mount them on a card and make a little greeting card out of them, couldn't you actually? That'd be quite pretty. Just simple, straightforward, just all over colour. This one looks a bit more complicated. You'd need to have some idea of a little bit of drawing to do that one, I guess. I made that quite a bloodshot eye, haven't I? I just wanted the pink in there because I liked the colour. And I've just stamped the word C there. Now that's very faint. I haven't stamped that very well. What I will do is just sharpen. That's the ink black Inktense. We'll just go over that. Again, you could do that with a fabric pen as well. Now I'm not going to be washing these, but you can make the Inktense permanent. Once you wet it, it becomes permanent. If you want to be really sure, heat set it with a hot iron, but I'm not going to worry because with these they're not things that are going to get washed, you know. That one's a bit faint as well. Yes, that's the birdhouse one, and that's again 2 of those little separate chain stitches, like lazy daisy stitches on the top there to make a kind of heart shape, just overlapping straight stitches here to make the roof slates, a little tiny cross stitch, and another whipped running stitch. So that is all straight stitches, and just the little lazy daisy there, which is just like a single chain stitch. They are very basic. I've really used, I suppose, 3 stitches there, and I can show you them all in a second, just in case you're interested. This one I'll probably still do a little bit more work on. I'm not quite happy with that yet. I've done some little French knots there. My French knots are always deliberately messy. Those are not perfect French knots by any stretch, but that's not what I wanted them. I wanted messy ones. And then I've just started doing some little seed stitches all around here, and I'll fill in a lot of the negative space with that, I think. Just a whip chain stitch up the middle, same old really, and then with each one I've backed them with a little scrap of coordinating fabric. All of these have come from the Bazaar packs, except for this, which was an old shirt. So I'm aware that I'm probably gabbling through this in a not great order. I'm trying to catch up on too many things today at the same time, but okay, so I'm just going to tear that, partly because I'm lazy, partly because I like the torn look. And I'm just going to quickly talk you through it, how I do it, in case you want to have a go at one of these. So I think there are just a lot of uses for these. Like I say, you could just turn them into a simple greeting card, or you could stitch them onto a fabric journal cover or a craft bag or a jacket or anything really. Okay, so to do this bit, all you need is the Inktense pencils. You could try it with watercolour pencils if it's something that doesn't need to be permanent. And you could also try it with other, try what you've got. You could just use coloured pencils, to be honest, to provide the colour. I don't know how permanent they would be, or if you get a very vivid colour on it, but certainly worth experimenting with. You could try markers, and I know there are different fabric markers and things. What I worry about is the bleeding outside the area. I'm just going to do a really simple shape. What shall I do? I'll do another heart shape, and I'm just going to freehand the outline on there first. Let's get a nice wonky heart shape, shall we? Try and make it deliberately wonky. My mind wants to make it symmetrical, and you have to kind of try and hold the fabric taut as you do it. Now with Inktense, you'll know if you've used them before, when they first go down they don't look all that bright or anything. It's when you activate them with water that they become really intense. So there's 2 reasons why they're called Inktense. One is they're ink, not watercolour. That's the big difference. One of the questions that came up in the live was what's the difference? They kind of work in the same way, a similar way, but watercolour pencils are watercolour in a pencil format. These are ink, that's why they're called Inktense, and the colours are very intense. Another huge difference is that watercolour pencils, even once you've activated them, will remain reactive to water if they get wet again. These won't. Once they've been wet once, they're not going to go anywhere. So I'm just doing a fairly light all over layer of colour on here. Decided rather than just do a pink or red heart, I'm going to make it, I need to shut the door because my husband's just come in. So I've got a sort of all over coat of that lilac-y colour. What's it called? Red. Oh, that's red. That's the red violet. I've got them the wrong way around. And then I'm going to use this crimson at the bottom. I sort of blend them out. You can just, keep it simple and just do an all over colour. It's fine because you're going to stitch over it anyway. And then the thing is to activate them with water. Normally water. However, if you activate them with water, until the water dries, it will keep moving out into the fabric and taking the colour with it. Now that can be a really pretty effect if you want that, and you can still stitch into it and quilt with it, layer it together with wadding and quilt. I've seen some beautiful things done. Just put in Inktense fabric into YouTube, you'll see all sorts of ideas come up. But if you want it fairly controlled, you want this specific shape and you want to keep the outline, you need something to stop it kind of travelling out, and that's where this aloe vera gel comes in. There are different things you can use, there are lots of different ideas on YouTube, but I thought this was the most simple and accessible. It's so easy to get aloe vera gel. Doesn't have to be this make, this is just the one I found on Amazon. I did try with a hand gel. I had an aloe vera hand gel and a normal hand gel, and I even tried with I have this isopropyl alcohol, which works to a point but not quite as well. I think it works because well, my theory is it works because it just evaporates away really fast and dries almost straight away, whereas water takes a while, and so the colour stops travelling once this dries up, which is pretty quick. But I found it just a tiny bit, it sometimes just travelled a tiny bit outside the lines, whereas with this, I guess because it's a gel, it kind of sits on the top of on the surface of the fabric more and still dries away really quickly. So if I actually use this as it's meant to be used, as a moisturiser, that's kind of gone straight into my hands and dried off almost instantly. It feels lovely actually. So I think that's why it works. So I'm just going to squirt a tiny bit of that onto my glass mat there and just dip my brush into it, as the same as I would with a pot of water, and start activating this beautiful Inktense colour. And if you've never used Inktense before, let me just show you the difference once you activate it. So that's the difference in the colours. And you can carry on, let this layer dry and put another layer over the top. It will layer. The layer underneath won't move as long as all of the colour has been activated. Do excuse me still sounding croaky and snotty, I just cannot seem to shake this lurgy off. It's not making me feel particularly rough, but it's a bit annoying. I was out in the snow for ages yesterday, freezing cold, waiting for a bus to go and get my new glasses. I did have a nice lunch to make up for it though, thank you Tom. And as you can see, it's not gone outside my initial line at all, and that will now dry up pretty quickly. They're just such a convenient way to carry ink around, to be honest. That's, yeah. You can also get Inktense blocks and Inktense kind of pans, look like a watercolour set. But I just think these are the most convenient way to use it for me. Right, so that has now pretty much dried. It's slightly damp. It's got a bit more drying to do, but you know. So I can just now do a bit of stitching just to show you what I mean. I just found all the embroidery threads on the floor. If I wasn't in such chaos in here trying to do 6 different projects at the same time. So I've got this stranded embroidery thread and I'm just using, so it's 6 strands. Basically you've got 6 strands, and this is like very beginner. I'm probably telling most of you to suck eggs, but so you've got 6 strands there and you separate them out, and you tend to, I've just dipped that in the gel. Nice. It's all wet now. Usually when you're doing embroidery, sometimes it'll tell you different, but usually you'll use just two strands together like that. I think I'm going to have to use a different bit till that's dried now. So you'll pull out a length like that. Don't make it too long because you'll just get in a tangle with it. And then you just separate out a couple of strands like that, and then just I tend to hold one in my teeth so I can pull them apart, and you've just got those 2 strands there. I need a needle. I'll use this one just to show you because I don't know, I only came across these recently. Don't know if you've ever seen them. You get these needles, they've got a very strange looking eye, and basically you can thread them without having to put the thread through the hole. So let me show you what I mean. I've just done that again. I've done exactly the same thing again. Oh, for Pete's sake. Let's get another bit, and let's not dip it in the aloe vera gel this time. Okay, so with these ones, instead of actually having to thread them, you get hold of the, I'm going to put it there first and then show you. You get hold of the thread like that and just pull it, and that bit at the top, that sort of V-shaped bit at the top there, is actually open, so you can pull the thread through it, so you don't actually have to thread it as such, and then it goes through. Oh, it's brilliant. It's hard to explain. I think they're called self-threading needles or something. Yeah, strange thing, I only came across them recently. I would also recommend, if you're just getting into stitching, get a needle threader, unless you've got perfect eyesight like I used to have. You got the ordinary cheapy ones you get like this. These are really handy if you're, I may as well show you properly. So say I wanted to put this thread, or I was going to use all 6 strands, so it's quite thick, and I wanted to get it through there. I would find that quite tricky, even with a big eye like this, when you've got a big thread. So with this, all you do is you put this through the eye of the needle like that. Okay. and then you put the thread through this much bigger hole, which is really easy, and then you pull that back through. Is that brilliant or what? And that's like pennies to buy. So useful. So I'm just going to make a knot, because most of my stitching isn't going to show. Like with this one, I've done all that stitching there, but the only stitching that's going to show on the back is the last row of stitching, this outer row of stitching I used to attach it to the backing fabric. I forgot all that when I was doing this last night or the night before, and actually ended up doing all the stitching to all of the layers. It won't matter because I'm going to put it onto it, it won't show anyway, but you know, if you want to be tidy, put your backing fabric on last. So this is how I like to tie a knot. You don't have to do it however you like. I put it alongside the needle like that, wind it round a couple of times, hold it on sort of firmly but not too tight there, and then just pull that through, and that automatically makes a nice little knot at the end. I'm going to show you the whip, so you can do a lot with just straight stitches, and one of the things I love about doing this kind of thing is just like lots and lots of straight stitches out there, especially if you do them in colourful threads and things. I just love them. I just love the look of it. I love doing it, and you can vary them quite a lot by doing them in different directions or whipping them with a different colour. So obviously I've got my knot there. I'm just going to do running stitches in and out. I'm sure everybody's done these, but I'm just going to do that quickly so I can show you what I mean by whipping it, in case you don't know. I can bring this down a bit because you won't be able to see when I come to the bit that you do need to see, and I will tend to take several stitches at a time like that. Okay, that's enough just to show you what I mean. I'll take these stitches out and do it again after. So I want to whip this, which means go in and out of the running stitches that I've made. So I'm going to want to put my needle underneath the stitches I've already made. When I do that, I find it easier to use the blunter end of the needle rather than the pointed end. It just slips in and out more easily. So I'm going to put it underneath that first stitch. I bring it round, and then underneath that second stitch. This looks a bit neater, works a bit better if you do a back stitch rather than just a running stitch, but just to show you how quick and easy it can be, I've done it with a running stitch. Or you can do the little running stitches closer together, especially when you go around a curve like this. Probably make them smaller or do a back stitch rather than a running stitch. But the idea, this is what I mean by when you whip the running stitch, or any stitch, any line of stitching. When you whip it, you're putting another layer of thread around it. So because my running stitches are quite far apart, I've got quite a lumpy line there, but you know, you get the gist. Then I could also do a chain stitch. So let's okay, so I'm going to do a chain stitch. So I've just started my thread and my knot's underneath, and now I'm going to make a loop like that. Oops, let's make the loop more obvious. So I've got kind of a loop. I'm going back in really close to where I first came up, and then coming out a little bit further along, depending on how big you want your stitch to be. And then I'm keeping the needle on top of that loop that I made and just pulling it through. Like that. So that's made my first little chain. And if I wanted to, I could take my needle back down through now and fasten it off, and that would be one of those little single ones like I did for the melon seeds. So I've just, you can't see now because of that one I have backed, and then just fasten them off at the back. In fact, what I was doing then was going down through and then coming up where the next seed needed to be. So just doing that over and over again. But if I want to do my chain kind of in a row, a normal chain stitch, I'm just going to make my loop again like that, and I'm going to put my needle back in just a tiny bit behind where I've come up. So my thread has come up here, I've made a loop, and I'm just going back a tiny bit and putting my needle in again, and then bringing it up. Usually you want to make this about the same length as you did before, so you want even size stitches, but you can experiment with doing different size stitches as well, just to make it a bit more interesting, whatever you want to do. Putting that loop around the needle again, so the needle's on top of the loop, and pulling it through. Really awkward showing it at this angle, but we can do it. And the other thing to do with these little chains is to do them round in a circle, make a little lazy daisy as well. It's basically the same stitch, but you know, right, I'm going to make one more and then I'm just going to whip it to show you what that looks like. These are such basic stitches, I feel almost daft even showing them to you, but if you'd never done any stitching before and you saw us doing this on the live and you want to have a go, you only need these couple of stitches and then just start playing with them. You can do all sorts, just to get you started really. So now I want to whip this row of chain. I've got my little row of chain there and I want to whip it, so I'm putting my needle in blunt end of the needle again. It's just easier, because otherwise if you do the sharp end it's easy to kind of go into the fabric by mistake. So put the blunt end in under that stitch, bring it round, go onto the next stitch, bring it round, go onto the next stitch. Bring that down through and fasten it off at the back. So it just gives it a more, you know, a heavy line, a bit more interesting texture, you know. If you wanted to do those chains in a circle to make a lazy daisy, just again bring your thread up, put the needle back in pretty much just slightly away from where you started, make your loop of thread, bring your needle back up to, you know, depending on how big you want your petals to be, make sure the needle's over the top of the loop and put it out, and that's made your first little link, and then put the needle back down through just to anchor that stitch. So this was how I did the individual little melon seeds, and I might have done another little running stitch inside just to, I could do that now just to show you. I bring the needle up again, put it down, just fills that in a bit. Okay, that's one little petal, and then I bring it back up at that centre point again, make the loop, put the needle back in close to where I came out, try and make the petal about the same length. Bring the needle up again over the top of that loop and put that down. Normally with a lazy daisy you would just leave the petal like that, you wouldn't fill it in, and you just go round and round and round till you've filled that in. If you wanted to do a French knot at the centre, let's show you a French knot. You just put your needle back in and out like that, very close to where you first came out, very close together, not too much space. You can, I like to put the thread around 3 or 4 times even and make a really big fat messy French knot, but I think really you only need to do it say twice. Wrap the thread around that needle, hold it there, not too firmly because you've got to pull it through, but I just keep pulling it. Oh, it's very hard to do it at that angle. Keep pulling it until it forms that little knot. Put the needle back in so you can anchor it at the back, and that's made your little French knot. What else to do? Obviously with the whipping you don't need to use the same colour, it looks quite pretty if you, so say if I do a little bit of back stitch here just to show you the difference, so there's no gaps between the stitches, that's probably enough to show you, and then I could get a different colour, a bit of this blue this time, show you better how this needle works, if I can get the blinking thing to focus. There we go. So I've just laid the thread over the top of that weird looking needle eye, and then you just pull so it just clicks down. So I'm not even bother making my knot this time because I'm only really demonstrating this. So now to whip the stitch, I'm just going to bring my thread up close to where I started the row of backstitch. And again, I'm just going to use the wrong end of the needle, the blunt end of the needle, to take that contrasting thread. Oh, I've tangled it. Yeah, I've pulled this. This is too long. This length of thread is too long. That's why you don't really want to do it too long. So I'm taking that thread, that contrast thread, underneath that first stitch, bringing it out, underneath the next stitch. And you just experiment with, you know, you could use a different thickness of thread on the bottom, a thinner one on the top, or you could use a metallic thread to do the whipping to give it a bit of a sparkle, you know. So that one, you can see what a pretty effect that is. It's probably one of my favourites, really. So yeah, with just a basic straight stitch and a chain stitch and then whipping them, you can get lots and lots of different effects. And I just have a play, really. See how you get on. I mean, that little cross stitch there, across that way round, and across that way as well. It's just straight stitches. That's it. I know that was all a bit haphazard, but I just wanted to come back and, well, for a start, show you how the needle case turned out, and also just give a closer look at how you actually do these patches, because I didn't feel I really showed it very well on the live. That is the ones I've made so far, and I will start putting these onto things like the journal wraps and stuff, because I think like something like that would look really pretty on there, incorporated into one of these. So that's all I quickly wanted to show you today, and look at the state of it. Look at the state of it. I've had a busy week, and I've got so many things. I've got so many things, so many irons in the fire. I'm getting a bit confused. I'm going to have to write a list. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that or found it useful. If you've got any questions at all, please do pop them in the comments. Also, the Discord group is going strong. I will leave links to... I'll put my link tree in there. You can find either the Arty Farty group, Arty Farty Annie group on Facebook, or the Arty Farty's Discord, which is, we've just started. It's going great guns, and lots of people chatting in there. I'm really enjoying that. And so if you can also put questions in either of those places as well. So anyway, enough waffling on. I'm going to go back to my journal page now, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.